So now moving on to take leaders' questions under Standing Order 36. Agus a rís, just na sríanta ama a chuileán gahiv. Okay, the seachta.
Gurmaigad asking Corlia. And Minister Tebri in the agus Charlie go fáil dul gnecla balchu allwar price na agus den gearchem costas moralte a gael a frigre prenia on realtas agus nia shoni salir na narratamide dela la costas foniv and chaktan shahache doger energia grow the price na a good customary agus in doger Electric Ireland and Salahar Electra has this most stage Gamusha Gardu and price Electra has fee quick fangade agus and price gas fee tree fangade Rhoda Horu quick kids €8 la na billy biantual na Charlie. Minister, workers and families continue to deal with the massive price inflation and they face an unprecedented cost of living crisis that demands a really urgent response from government. And nowhere is that more evident than in the issue of energy costs. Last week, we seen Energia announce a price increase for its customers, and that is the 4th price hike announced by Energia in the past year, and it comes just a week after Bord Gáis announced a massive price hike that will see the household bill for energy increase by €775. Yesterday, we have Electric Ireland, the largest electricity provider in the state, and it announced that it will be increasing its electricity prices by 23% and its gas prices by 25%. And that, Minister, was going to add another €518 to the yearly household bills of struggling householders already. And Minister, this comes after 35 energy price increases that were announced last year. But the only announcements that we're hearing in relation to energy prices are from the providers hiking up the prices. We hear nothing from you as Minister with the responsibility for energy, no measures from you that would see a reduction for workers and families in relation to their bills. And without action, Minister, low and middle incomes are faced to bear the brunt of these price hikes and they simply cannot afford it. So we all recognise in this House the external factors that are driving up the wholesale costs of energy and that not all price hikes can be eliminated, but you can and you must do much more. We've already outlined to you in Sinn Féin what could be done. So for 5 months, for example, we have been calling on the government to engage with the European Commission to reduce VAT on household energy bills for a period of time. In a response to a parliamentary question that I put to the Minister for Finance this week, he informs me that he only wrote to the Commission in relation to this matter 2 weeks ago. That is completely unacceptable, Minister, and households that are bearing the brunt of this here believe that that is unacceptable also. We need a government that is active. We need a government that will press the Commission to allow VAT to be reapplied on domestic energy bills at a rate of 0. So my questions to you this morning are these. Has the government now formally sought a derogation from the Commission in relation to VAT on energy bills? Is it the government's intention to reduce VAT to 0 for a period of time on domestic energy bills, as we have been calling on your government to do for the last 5 months? And when do you expect this process to be concluded? In addition, Minister, you know well that the government could reduce the cost of home heating oil tonight if you wanted to. And this is the primary way that 1/3 of households in this state use to heat their homes. In the northwest, in the west and in the border areas, 2/3 of households use home heating oil as the primary source of heating. And you could reduce that tonight. You could remove excise duty on home heating oil, which would reduce the cost of a fill of tank by about €100. The cost of a fill has increased to €1,600 this month. It is simply a breaking point for many families. The other issue I want to ask you, Minister, have you engaged with ESB? ESB, obviously, Electric Ireland is a subsidiary of ESB. ESB made profits of nearly €700 million and paid dividends to the state. Have you engaged with ESB as an energy provider and a generator to make sure that those profits aren't being recorded next year and that savings are passed on to consumers?
Firstly, this crisis, the war in Ukraine is central, obviously, but it started prior to that. But it was similar cause. The Russian government from early last year started to turn off the gas supply to Europe. Europe is now at historic low levels in the storage of gas because of that decision. And we saw those high prices last year and responded in the budget with increases in social welfare and other provisions to protect people. Because yes, we, like you, can see this as an existential crisis for the people in our country, in our homes. But we didn't stop there. Since then, you ask about what measures? I have to list them, similar to other European countries, in a similar timely manner. Next week, our €200 credit on people's bills will come in. It won't cover the cost increase. It'll only help cushion the blow, but it was important that we got that ready and had it in place so that this week, next week, it will be seen in people's bills. But also then going further, reducing excise rates, introducing a new 80% grant for people to actually insulate their homes, which is the best way of responding to the crisis, to actually reduce the cost, reduce the use of the fuel, reduce the influence of the Russian government in our economic affairs by their control on oil supplies and gas supplies and the prices. Reducing public transport for those under 24 by 50%, reducing by 20% the general fares for everyone else. And we're going to have to do a whole lot more. We'd further increase the social welfare positions because we are going to have to be targeted now, what we do, to those houses at most risk of fuel poverty. You ask about talking to the Commission. I've spent the last week travelling, unfortunately, more than anything else, in Paris last week at the International Energy Agency meeting, where I had long discussions with Commissioner Simpson from the Energy Commissioner, and again in Berlin over the last 3 days, talking to German and other colleagues exactly about how we're going to manage this crisis, because we have to do it collectively. As John Fitzgerald said yesterday, it's not certain even what the latest developments will be in the coming weeks. Russia last week was looking that they were threatening in effect to switch off the gas and oil to Europe, which would see a further spike in prices that are already beyond historic any compare. 5, 6, 7-fold what the prices would have been a year and a half ago. And John Fitzgerald's right. We have to be careful in monitoring and managing that and introduce new measures in a really timely manner. Can I also say that what Minister Paschal Donohoe is doing is really important in this? Because what I found in this process, when we've been going to him and Michael McGrath saying we've got a problem here, he has been in the same way that he works I've seen him work in COVID and other issues. So, okay, what can we do? Being flexible and be willing to think outside the box. But he also has an issue that we have to pay for everything in this country, the social welfare, the housing, the education, not just now for the Irish people, but for the people we're giving refuge and sanctuary from the bombs that are dropping in Mariupol and Kiev and the other cities in Ukraine. We have to have the resources to be able to make sure that they get the basic welcome, the basic services that they need, as well as our own people. And if we were to stand up and promise we can cut every tax, we can cover every bill, then actually that would be a false promise, because we'd be on the same side saying we'd have to go and honestly say to them, well, because we've cut all these tax revenues, these are some of the services that we're going to cut. I've also been speaking directly to the ESB, of course, right the way through this crisis. Met them on Monday in Berlin at the same conference. And that company has a vital role, because one of the other things we need to do in this time of real challenge is to make sure that we are part of a transition away from that fundamental weakness we have, which is our reliance on fossil fuels, excessive reliance. ESB are the public company owned by us, working for us, which will help us in that transition.
Minister, you didn't answer not one of the questions I put to you. Not one. You're the minister with responsibility for energy, yet the only thing we hear is energy provider after energy provider after energy provider telling customers they're hiking up their prices, and nothing from you. Silence from you. Deafening silence from you. Board gas, €75 extra on the bill of a household. Electric Ireland, 518 on the bill of a household. What's the minister with responsibility for energy saying? Nothing. So let me put the questions again. Have you formally sought the derogation to reduce VAT on energy bills? Do you support the reduction of VAT on energy bills down to zero? And when is this process going to be concluded? And in terms of your conversations with ESB that made profits of close to €700 million, paid dividends of over €100 million to the state, have you talked to them in relation to ensuring that its subsidiary, Electric Ireland, the biggest provider of energy in the state, who've just told its customers they're ramping up prices, both in the unit cost and in the standing charge, that this needs to be reduced as far as possible to support customers at the time? Please, Minister, with responsibility for energy, can you say something relevant to price increases that are happening every single household across the state at this point in time?
It'd be very easy for me to come in here and say, oh, we're going to cut VAT. And they're very, very kind of nice. But the question, and the reason I mentioned Minister Donoghue is he would rightly come back and say, how are we going to fund everything we need to do? And that is the reality that we face in government that you can't ignore, because we do have mounting things that we have to pay for. We will continue to do additional measures. We will have to, and we will do it with the European Union. Yes, we're talking in the Union. That's what the discussions were in Berlin and in Paris last week, to look at what can we change here to help reduce our weakness. But they come back and say, yes, we will look at the market, look at all the structures, not rule anything in or out. But the fundamental thing that everyone has agreed on, that the thing we need to accelerate is the reduction in the use of the fuels, because otherwise what we would be doing is giving funds back to Russia. He's spending roughly €500 million a day.
Support the reduction in VAT on energy bills.
I can say, first of all, we will not do the October budget here now. We will look at further additional measures.
So we're over time.
Those measures have to be focusing on actually helping practical ways of...
I'm moving on.